So we're going to talk about noise removal and mostly why you shouldn't rely on it. I've got 3 clips here, and let's take a look at the first one.
Now we're back in New York. What were you doing sleeping all that time? You overslept.
Alright, now this is kind of a classic example of there's a lot of background voices and stuff, and noise removal is not going to be very effective here. Now noise removal exists in Audacity. I'm not going to really cover that. But there's noise removal in a lot of different software, and in Final Cut Pro there's an audio tab, and if you go to audio enhancements, I can go over here, and there's a background noise removal, and basically what it's going to do, it's going to take, because the waveforms, you've got the stuff where you're talking where it's fairly loud, and then there are the points where it's not so loud, and it's going to try and think, okay, well, the stuff that's not so loud, let's just remove that entirely. And then you can basically adjust the amount of background noise removal that you want. And if we set this at 100%, let's listen.
Now we're back in New York. What were you doing sleeping all that time? You overslept.
Alright, now that, on the one hand, it's great. It seemed to remove a lot of the background noise, except there are a couple places where the background voices were just loud enough that it didn't get cut, but the worst part is that it, at the beginning and the ends of your sentences, usually you're not speaking quite as loudly, and so it's actually going to clip that, and your voice sounds weird and distorted. If you're going to use background noise removal, I'd suggest that you do only a tiny, tiny bit. People are not too picky about when there's a little bit of background noise. It's kind of expected because you're in a public place. That said, let's move on to the second clip and take a listen.
And who knows, I may record some stuff from there, I may not.
Alright, now here this is an example where I probably would use a little bit of background noise removal because the background noise is constant and it's consistent. It's just that, basically that hum. So if we were to go here, and if I go 100% background noise removal, let's take a listen.
And who knows, I may record some stuff from there, I may not.
Alright, so it got rid of most of the hum, but it also sounds like I'm speaking in a bit of a tin can. So in this case, you could do a little bit of background noise removal. It's not going to fix the problem entirely, but let's listen how.
And who knows, I may record some stuff from there, I may not.
Alright, and see, we're getting still a little bit of distortion to the voice. It's more important that the sound that you do want doesn't get mucked up than it is that the background noise gets removed. So that's probably a threshold. I'd probably even take it down a little bit more, and then you just got to be kind of comfortable with where that sounds. So that's, basic background noise removal, but there's another tactic, and here I've taken this clip that actually has fairly decent audio, and I've added a bunch of static to it. Let's take a listen.
Okay, this is getting ridiculous. I'm closing this down.
Okay, now static tends to be fairly high-pitched. I mean, it's going to depend. It's going to vary. If you've got a furnace running, it's probably going to be relatively low, but sometimes you'll have random electronic hisses and stuff. One thing that you can do that's not technically noise removal, but that can sort of fix the issue, is adjust the equalization. That's something, if in your car you've got bass and stereo, and perhaps a bit more flexibility. And basically you can just say that for sounds of a certain frequency, we've got low frequency, and we've got high frequency, and then higher than the human voice can make, we can basically cut those out. So if I were to turn these high frequencies very far down, let's listen to how that sounds.
Okay, this is getting ridiculous. I'm closing this down.
Alright, so the static isn't quite as present, and if it happens to be one particular nice range, it's easy enough to do, but at the same time, if you remove too much of the treble, then my voice sounds a lot more bassy than it normally would. So these are a couple of tactics that you can use, but you want to use them very sparingly and very, very, very lightly. The most important thing is that you set up whatever recording equipment that you have to capture as much as your voice as loud as possible without peaking the mic, and reducing the amount of background noise. And we'll talk about microphones in a later tutorial.